Dawgs podcast with your hosts, Blake Reneker, Justin Charles, John Nye, and Josh All.
What's up, Browns fans? Welcome back to another episode of the Dawgs podcast presented by Omaha Steaks. Mother's Day is just 1 week away, everybody. You're going to be grilling out. You're going to have a get-together. You're going to have family, maybe some friends over. You want to celebrate the special mothers in your life. Get Omaha Steaks. Right now, go to omahasteaks.com. Use promo code DAWGS, D-A-W-G-S, for $20 off and free shipping on orders over $129 or more. Josh with you here on a Sunday, and I want to talk about Andrew Berry, the Browns GM, because there has been a lot of debate amongst Browns fans that I've seen online. It's been all over our comment section, YouTube, Twitter, everywhere. A lot of people not big fans of Andrew Berry, and then there's also a lot of people who love Andrew Berry. So I just want to dive in to what Andrew Berry has actually done for the Cleveland Browns. Now, this is going to be part one of a two-part video series about Andrew Berry. So today we're going to go over the free agent signings and trades that Andrew Berry has done, put together for the Cleveland Browns since he has become the Browns general manager. Now, on the next video, on part two, I will go over the draft picks that Andrew Berry has made. And I've got a spreadsheet that I've built, that I put together myself, with a formula to kind of calculate what sort of value each draft pick has, I guess, given the Browns since it was made. So it's a very interesting deep dive into all the moves Andrew Berry has made, everything he's done for the team, and whether or not he's actually performed well or not so well as the Browns general manager. So before we get into that, I'm going to go right back to the Omaha Steaks thing real quick, guys. I was talking to somebody in our Dog Pack group, and they were asking me personally, like, are Omaha Steaks really, as great as you guys say they are? And I told them, yes, absolutely. I always have Omaha Steaks in my freezer. Like, I've got boxes and boxes of food from Omaha Steaks stocked in the freezer right now. And the important thing to note, for me anyway, is, the relationship with Omaha Steaks as a sponsor of this program, they didn't reach out to us. I reached out to them and asked them if we could strike a partnership with them because I knew how great the food was. And I don't want to promote a product to all of you listeners of this show if I don't believe in the product, if I don't like it myself, if it's a garbage product. Why would I want to try to, tell you guys how great it is? That's not what I want to do. So I like to strike up partnerships with companies that have good reputations, good products, and I feel will really resonate with you. And I know you guys like to grill. I know you guys like to eat steak and burgers and chicken and all that good stuff. Everything that Omaha Steaks has to offer. So that's my push for that. There will not be an ad read later in the show because I just did all that. So appreciate everybody listening. Again, omahasteaks.com, promo code DAWGS, D-A-W-G-S. So let's talk about the Cleveland Browns general manager, Andrew Berry. Andrew Berry just recently turned 36 years old. He is a Harvard graduate. He just recently turned 36 years old. He's a Harvard graduate with a bachelor's degree in economics, and he has a master's degree in computer science. And he also played college football for Harvard. I believe he was a defensive back for Harvard when he was in college. So he has football experience along with his economics degree, which I think plays a big role into the moves that he makes. This is his actual second stint with the Cleveland Browns. He was hired as the vice president of player personnel in 2016. He was in that role until 2018. And then in 2019, the Philadelphia Eagles hired Andrew Berry to be their vice president of football operations before the Cleveland Browns gave him the general manager job in 2020 when he was 32 years old. That made him the youngest general manager in NFL history at that time. So the Browns obviously liked Andrew Berry. They loved him, in fact, because he was with the team before in a different role. And they saw the future and the potential that Andrew Berry had, and they brought him right back. Because remember, when he was here the first time, that was in 2016, that had been 4 years before that, he would have been 28 years old. think about that. How old are you watching this video or listening to this show on audio? I mean, Andrew Berry was a very young man in a very crucial, important decision-making role for the Cleveland Browns before he was even the GM. And then he goes on to Philadelphia, takes a role with them for a season, and the Browns are like, nope, we have got to bring you back in like the most important role as far as player personnel goes, and we're going to bring you in as the general manager at age 32. Now, I'm 33, almost 34, so, Andrew Berry was just a little bit younger than I am now whenever he took over the general manager role. That's a huge responsibility for somebody that young. But at the same time, this is what Andrew Berry was built for. This is what he worked for in his career, to be in this position, to have this opportunity. And he has really taken advantage of it. So, like I said at the open, what I want to do is I want to talk about, in this video, in part one, let's go through the trades that Andrew Berry has made since he has been the general manager, and we'll talk about not all the free agent signings, because you got to remember, these GMs, these front offices, they sign players all the time. They're signing practice squad guys, elevating, releasing, waiving, re-signing, adding to this list or whatever. So the moves are endless. They're constantly making moves. But I'm going to go through the key ones, the key free agent signings that have contributed to the Browns since Andrew Berry's been the GM, and we're going to walk through the trades that he's made. So let's start with the trades, though. Before I do want to remind everybody real quick that here, for all you folks in Ohio, we have an awesome limited time promo for the new DraftKings users. Deposit and place a $5 wager on any sport to get $150 instantly added to your account in bonus bets, win or lose. All you have to do is use our code TheDawgs, all one word, at sign up to redeem. Using our code TheDawgs, it's a great way to support the podcast. So if you don't have a DraftKings account yet, do us a solid. Sign up with the code TheDawgs and place that first bet. New customers only, 21 and older, physically present in Ohio. Please gamble responsibly. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. Valid one offer per customer. Minimum $5 deposit and $5 wager required. Rewards issued as non-withdrawable bonus bets and expire 7 days after being awarded. See full terms at DraftKings.com. So Andrew Berry's trades. Let's start with the trades. So in 2020, when he was coming in as the new general manager of the Browns, kicked over a 7th round pick to Denver for fullback Andy Janovich. Now, if you remember, Andy Janovich was a key part in the Browns running game because we were building an offensive line at the time, because before Andrew Berry came in, the offensive line was kind of garbage. It just was not good. Now, looking back, 2020 vision, a lot of those sacks and pressures and things that were given up were in part due to Baker Mayfield and, his tendencies behind the line of scrimmage. But at the same time, the offensive line just really was not that good. We were trying to reinforce the running game. So a 7th round pick for a great fullback to deploy in that running game, that was a pretty good move, I feel like. We thought that at the time. So then he goes and he trades a 7th round pick to New Orleans. Now that 3rd round pick, essentially what we were doing, we moved back 14 spots. And in return for that, we drafted Jordan Elliott. Okay, so maybe not the best pick. And then we also picked up a 2021 third. So we traded a 3rd and a 7th for 2 thirds. And the second 3rd round pick was Anthony Schwartz. So that trade was not very good if you look back on it. So we traded a 3rd and a 7th to get Jordan Elliott and Anthony Schwartz. Those two players have not panned out whatsoever for the Browns. Those two players are probably not going to be on the roster this year. Okay, now remember, this is still Andrew Berry's first year as the GM. He traded a 2nd round pick to the Colts to move back 3 spots in the 2nd round. And we picked up a 5th round pick in that move. So we traded a 2nd round pick to the Colts, So we traded a 2nd round pick to the Colts to essentially swap seconds, and we picked up a 5th rounder in the deal. That 2nd round pick, we moved back 3 spots to draft Grant Delpit. So far, that looks like a good move. Grant Delpit has been a very good safety for the Browns. The 5th round pick, we took Nick Harris. Jury is out on Nick Harris. I know a lot of Browns fans don't feel that way. They are just straight up out on Nick Harris. Now, the Browns, on the other hand, as far as we know, and as far as the team's moves have told us, they love Nick Harris because last year they cut, I think J.C. Treader was our starter at the center position for 5 years, a great solid veteran player at the center of that offensive line, and they cut him because they felt confident enough in Nick Harris's development and his role on the team to be the starting center for the Browns. So, I know we took Luke Whippler in the 6th round this year's. It does not mean that Nick Harris is gone. It does not mean that he is cut. It just means that we've added more depth to the O-line. It'll be interesting to see what the Browns do with Nick Harris, but by all accounts, by their moves and the signaling of the team, they like him. So then Andrew Berry flipped a 5th-round pick to Jacksonville for safety Ronnie Harrison. Now, Ronnie Harrison started at safety for the Browns for 3 seasons. So Andrew Berry flipped a 5th-round pick for a 3-year starter at safety. And, Ronnie Harrison didn't play bad for the Browns. It's really hard to evaluate the defensive performances of some of these players, most of these players over the last 3 years, because defensive coordinator Joe Woods didn't do these guys any favors whatsoever. And we have talked about that at length. So to get a starting safety for 3 seasons for a 5th-round pick, that was a good trade by Andrew Berry. Okay, he then traded a 2021 2nd and 3rd-round pick to Carolina. The 2021 2nd-round pick was to move up 7 spots. We were at 59. He moved up 7 spots to 52 to draft J.O.K. And then the 4th-rounder that we got in that trade from Carolina, we ended up later trading to the Detroit Lions. So that 4th-round pick that we then traded to the Lions, we packaged that with a 7th-round pick, and in return, we got a 5th-round pick, which we took Tony Fields Jr., a 2022 4th, which we traded to the Vikings in a package that netted us Jerome Ford and Isaiah McGuire. So, with these draft picks, Andrew Berry has maneuvered his way around the draft very well to take. Now, some of these players, obviously, we're not going to say are great players or home run hits or anything like that, but, Tony Fields was not drafted to be a starting linebacker. He has played, reasonably well in his limited opportunities. Nothing extraordinary, but also he hasn't been horrible. Running back Jerome Ford is obviously, the Browns think he's good enough to not draft a running back this season, not bring back Kareem Hunt, and not sign any other free agent running backs as of yet. There will be more coming this summer, but right now they're good with Jerome Ford as the backup running back in this offense. And Isaiah McGuire we just took, McGuire could be a starting defensive end opposite Myles Garrett. Maybe not this year, but by next year, the kid has some real talent. So this move right here, this trade, really got the Browns some decent players. And one thing that you're going to notice as I go through the rest of this list and these players, Andrew Berry, I should have said this at the top of the video. Andrew Berry does not, so far in his 4 drafts now with the Browns, does not draft for starting positions because he doesn't have to. He signs and trades for his starting positions. Now, is that a good philosophy? Is that a bad philosophy? Let's look at it this way. How many seasons do you remember the Browns drafting for starters? We go into the NFL draft saying, okay, we've got holes at these 5 or 6 starting positions. We need to fill them in the draft. How well does that work out? Especially whenever, you might only have just the 1 first-round pick, the 1 second-round pick. You're not drafting starters on any sort of consistent basis whatsoever in the 3rd, 4th, 5th, 6th, 7th rounds. The Cleveland Browns couldn't even draft competent starters in the 1st round of the draft most of the time. So Andrew Berry has come in with a completely different approach. And whenever I go through the roster here toward the end of this video, you will see just how he has assembled what could possibly be right now the best roster this team has had. Maybe since since 99, since they came back, definitely within the last 10 years or so. This is the best roster we've had. And it's not being put together through the draft. So Andrew Berry takes the approach of, I'm going to go out and trade for or sign proven talent. Guys that I know what they can do on an NFL field, what they've shown they are capable of. When you're drafting guys out of college, it's a crapshoot, man. No, nothing is a sure thing. There's no sure bet coming out of the NFL draft. Bryce Young could be a total bust. We have no idea. You are drafting players on a hope and a prayer, and Andrew Berry does not build the Browns roster on hope and a prayer, which, me personally, I'm grateful for that. All right, so let's dive back into these trades that he has made. So now we're kind of moving into the more recent trades, and you kind of can see the progression here of Andrew Berry. His philosophy has not changed as far as the trades that he makes, but his savvy is getting better. So in 2022 here, or last season, he traded a 5th round pick to Dallas for wide receiver Amari Cooper, who was a 1,000-yard receiver, led the Browns in receiving last season, and it was a 6th round pick swap. We essentially got Amari Cooper for a 5th round pick, and we just traded 9 spots with the Dallas Cowboys in the draft. He traded Mack Wilson to the New England Patriots for Chase Winovich, and then he traded the big one, the big trade that will be debated forever, I'm sure. Unless the Browns end up winning the next 3 Super Bowls, this will never not be a debate amongst Browns fans, so just get used to it. Pick your side, know why you believe what you believe, and just roll. 2022, 2023, 2024 first-round picks, a 2023 third-round pick, and a 2024 fourth-round pick sent to the Houston Texans in exchange for quarterback, 3-time Pro Bowl quarterback Deshaun Watson, and we also got a 24 fifth-round pick in return. So that was a huge trade. The Cleveland Browns have never made a trade like this before. We have never given up multiple first-round picks. We covet those first-round picks just so we can essentially blow them. That's been the trend. And we got the absolute best quarterback available. These players like this do not come available very often. And you're certainly not going to get a franchise quarterback in free agency. They don't hit free agency. And, Andrew Berry said, what do I need these first-round picks for? He's only made 2 first-round picks before that, and it was Jed Wills and Greg Newsome. 2 starters since they were rookies for the Browns, so decent picks, good picks. But we don't need them. We need a quarterback in the worst way. So he went out and he got one. And, whatever side of the debate you're on, just make sure you understand why you feel the way you do. Okay. In the 2022 NFL draft, he traded pick 44 in the 2nd round to the Houston Texans again. Moved back, we got a 3rd round pick, which we used on Martin Emerson. Great pick. We got a 4th round pick in exchange, which we used on Perion Winfrey. Well, toward the end of last year, that was looking like it was going to end up being a good pick. Now, we are very questionable about that. And he got a 2nd 4th round pick last year, which he used to take Cade York. Cade York didn't have the rookie season that Browns fans were hoping for the kicker, but we will see. It's hard to judge, especially a rookie kicker on one season. Now, if there's no improvement this year, that's going to be a very poor pick in the 4th round. But the Browns needed a kicker. He was the best kicker in the draft. They went out. Andrew Berry made sure we got the kicker. So, also, last season in the 2022 NFL draft, we traded a 4th round pick to the Minnesota Vikings. In exchange, we got a 5th round pick, which we used on Jerome Ford. Again, I've already talked about Jerome Ford. And we got a 2023 4th round pick this season, which, like I mentioned earlier, we used on Isaiah McGuire. So right now, that trade looks like it's paying pretty good dividends. We traded cornerback Troy Hill to the Rams. In exchange, we got a 5th round pick, which we used on Dorian Thompson-Robinson, DTR, the quarterback out of UCLA. That is a controversial pick, but we have detailed why we think it was important for the Browns to identify who they wanted their backup quarterback to be on a rookie deal, a position of under-the-radar importance that the Browns do not have to worry about for the next 4 seasons. We traded a 2023 2nd-round pick 42, to the New York Jets. Again, an example of Andrew Berry saying, I have draft capital, I have a 2nd-round pick, and I can use that 2nd-round pick on a crapshoot, on hope and a prayer that I can find a wide receiver in the 2nd round that'll pan out, or I can just move that 2nd-round pick to a team for a guy that's shown on the field that he's got proven NFL talent. We bring in wide receiver Elijah Moore, and we also get a 3rd-round pick in the deal, pick 74, which we use on Cedric Tillman. So Andrew Berry turned pick 42 into not 1 but 2 wide receivers that could pay huge dividends down the road, this season and down the road for the Browns, because they're young. They're both on rookie contracts. This is a long-term move for very good value. Elijah Moore, like I said, proven talent at the wide receiver position. And Cedric Tillman, by a lot of analysts, he was ranked a lot higher than guys who went before him. The problem with Cedric Tillman is he dealt with injury, especially here in his last season in college, which pushed him down the board. He didn't have the stats and the production to really back up a higher draft capital investment by a team. So he falls to the Browns at pick 74, which it's just crazy that Andrew Berry turned that one pick into two solid wide receivers for this team. And then at the end of the draft, Andrew Berry took this Browns 7th round pick. Nobody on the board that we were too excited to use that pick on. Sent it to Baltimore to get a 6th round pick next year. And if you remember, our 6th round pick this year was Luke Whippler, a center out of Ohio State. So Andrew Berry, and he also used a 6th round pick a few years ago on DPJ. Andrew Berry can use 6th round picks. We'll pick up an extra one for next year. Great move, in my opinion, by Andrew Berry. Okay, we're going to take a look now at some of the key free agents that Andrew Berry has brought into the team since he became the general manager for the Browns. But before we do, we're just going to take a quick break. All right, free agent signings Andrew Berry has made for the Browns since he came in as the GM. Let's go all the way back to the beginning. I'm going to read this list in the reverse order that I got it here, but he signed, if you remember, linebacker B.J. Goodson was a Super Bowl winning linebacker for the Green Bay Packers. Comes in. Now, as I go through this list, Goodson's a good example. The guys that Andrew Berry has brought in, he's brought in good players. That's the key point of this. Now, did they pan out in the role that they were expected to? Not all of them. No, absolutely not. It doesn't always work out that way. And you will see that a lot of these players are on the defensive side of the ball. And again, we can blame a lot of that on Joe Woods. But Joe Woods was also Kevin Stefanski's guy. Kevin Stefanski is Andrew Berry's guy. So if you follow the progression, you can also put the blame on Andrew Berry. When you're in that position, you got to I'll give Andrew Berry the credit for our success. I will also give him the blame when things don't work out because of the coaching moves that he is allowed to happen under his time here at the general manager position. And just like there's a lot of people that want to give Kevin Stefanski a lot of the blame for all our losses. Well, if you look at our losses last year specifically, that was defense and special teams that blew a lot of those games. It was not the offense. It was not the part of the team that Stefanski's managing on game day. But the blame does go to Kevin for the losses because it was his coaching staff that just was incompetent. But at the same time, you can't then turn around and not give him the credit for the games we did win. So if you're going to blame a guy for the bad things and for the losses, then you better give them the credit for the good things and the wins. Just my little soapbox right there. So anyway, B.J. Goodson, Andrew Berry also then brought in tight end Austin Hooper. Now that didn't pan out, but at the time, that was a great signing because Hooper looked like an absolute up-and-coming steal at the tight end position. Time told a different story there. He signed backup quarterback Case Keenum. Good move. We needed a solid backup quarterback behind Baker Mayfield. Brought in defensive tackle Andrew Billings. He brought in safety Andrew Sadejo, linebacker Malcolm Smith, safety John Johnson III. These are all guys that came in to be starters on this team. Again, like I mentioned before, not drafted. Andrew Berry wasn't drafting starters in the draft. Andrew Berry likes to draft depth and future starting potential. It's another thing we'll get into here in a video, I don't know, sometime here in the near future about the offensive line of the future that has already been built in Cleveland. But anyway, Andrew Berry brings in guys for starting roles. B.J. Goodson, starting linebacker. Austin Hooper, starting tight end. Now, Case Keenum, obviously, he's the backup quarterback, but he was still a key signing for this team because that's like I said with DTR, a position of importance for any NFL franchise. Defensive tackle Andrew Billings, thought to be a starting defensive tackle. Safety Andrew Sadejo, a solid starting safety before he came to the Browns, and of course after he left the Browns, which goes back to Joe Woods. Linebacker Malcolm Smith, signed to be a starter. John Johnson III, signed to be a starter. The next season, defensive end Tack McKinley, signed to be a starter. Defensive tackle Malik Jackson, signed to be a starter. Cornerback Troy Hill, signed to be a starter. Defensive tackle Malik McDowell, signed to be a starter. Played well for the Browns when he was here. Quarterback Jacoby Brissett, signed to be a backup with the knowledge that he was going to be the starter. Tackle Jack Conklin, signed to be the starter. Center Ethan Posick, signed to be a depth piece backup center because Nick Harris was designated as the starting center for the Browns. But look what Ethan Posick turned into. The third ranked center in 2022. Excellent pickup for the Browns. Now this season, defensive end, Obo Oronquo, signed to be a starter. Defensive tackle, Dalvin Tomlinson, starter. This is a little out of order, I apologize, but we signed defensive end Jadeveon Clowney 2 seasons in a row, signed to be a starter. Safety, Juan Thornhill, signed to be a starter. A few seasons back, again, I'm sorry, a couple of these are out of order because we're re-signing guys. Anthony Walker was signed to be a starter at linebacker, and he was re-signed just now to be a starter at linebacker. Tight end Jordan Akins, under the radar. I don't think people are giving Jordan Akins, the tight end, the credit that he deserves. I don't think he's just a depth piece tight end. I think you're going to see a lot out of him in 2023. And then, of course, wide receiver Marquise Goodwin, signed to be the guy that Anthony Schwartz failed to be. So those were, some of the key free agent signings that Andrew Berry has brought in. So let's just, before I wrap this first video up, I want to look at the Browns' current starting roster as it stands today and how they were brought into this team. And I think everything I've talked about in this video, the trades Andrew Berry has made, during the offseason and during each draft, the free agents that he has brought in, this shows how Andrew Berry, over the last, we'll say 3 seasons because we're just in the 4th season right now of the offseason, look how he's built this team. So let's just start at the top, okay? Starting quarterback, Deshaun Watson. Andrew Berry traded for him. Running back, Nick Chubb. John Dorsey drafted him, but Andrew Berry's the one who gave him the team-friendly extension to keep him on the Browns. Wide receiver, Amari Cooper. Andrew Berry traded for him. Wide receiver, Donovan Peoples-Jones. Andrew Berry drafted him in the 6th round. Wide receiver, Elijah Moore. Andrew Berry just traded for him. Tight end, David Njoku. John Dorsey drafted him, but Andrew Berry's the one who got the extension, the long-term deal done. Left tackle, Jedrick Wills. Andrew Berry drafted him. Left guard, Joel Bitonio. Ray Farmer drafted him back in 2014, but Andrew Berry has since extended him. Center, Ethan Posick. Andrew Berry signed him and has now re-signed him. Right guard, Wyatt Teller. John Dorsey traded for him, but Andrew Berry extended him. Now let's flip over. So if you look right there, just before we go to the defense side of the ball, the offense, every single one of the designated starters right now on the depth chart for the Browns, Andrew Berry has either traded for, drafted, or extended to have on this team. All right, so let's move over to the defense. Defensive end, Myles Garrett. John Dorsey drafted him. Andrew Berry extended him. Defensive tackle, Dalvin Tomlinson. Andrew Berry signed him. Now, defensive tackle, Siaki Ika. He's not listed anywhere as a starter on a depth chart, but if we're going to throw a name in for the second starting defensive tackle position at this moment in time on the current Cleveland Browns roster, it has got to be Siaki Ika. This is what Andrew Berry just drafted him for. Now, will he be the starter come day 1 in September when we kick the season off? Probably not, since he's a rookie. And defensive tackle is it's more difficult for rookies to transition from college to pro at that position compared to all the other positions. But Siaki Ika, by the end of the season, I think you're going to see him. I really strongly believe in the talent and the development that Siaki Ika is going to experience here in year 1. The second defensive end position, Obo Oronquo. Andrew Berry signed him. Linebacker JOK, Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah. Andrew Berry drafted him. Keynote, JOK is the only player that Andrew Berry has ever traded up in the draft to select. Linebacker Anthony Walker, we talked about. Andrew Berry signed him and has now re-signed him. Safety Grant Delpit, Andrew Berry drafted him. Safety Juan Thornhill, Andrew Berry just signed him. Cornerback Denzel Ward, John Dorsey drafted him, but AB extended him. Cornerback Greg Newsome and cornerback Martin Emerson, both drafted by Andrew Berry. So if we're looking at the defensive side of the ball, and this is what, and again, I'm sorry, another thing I should have mentioned earlier in the video, comparing some of this stuff to the John Dorsey era in Cleveland, the current starting roster, if you look at the defensive side of the ball, John Dorsey has only had his hand in 2 of our current starters. And that would be, like I said, Denzel Ward and Myles Garrett. And whenever we look at the draft, there will be a lot of comparison between Andrew Berry's drafts and John Dorsey's drafts that I'm going to go through. And one key difference to keep in mind when we get to that video, to part 2, will be noting that John Dorsey always had first-round picks to work with. Andrew Berry does not work with first-round picks. So the draft philosophy between these 2 GMs was completely different. John Dorsey was able to draft several of our key core players for the Cleveland Browns. Myles Garrett, Denzel Ward, Nick Chubb, David Njoku. But these are all players that, while John Dorsey is responsible for getting them onto the Browns, Andrew Berry is responsible for keeping them on long-term deals that, like in Nick Chubb's case, was very team-friendly. So on the offensive side of the ball, John Dorsey had his hand in, looks like, 3 of our starters. So that's 5 starters of the Cleveland Browns, 22 that we listed here, that John Dorsey had a hand in selecting, but Andrew Berry has done the rest of the work for the Browns roster that we have right now. So while John Dorsey did a very good job of turning things around in Cleveland, bringing in some good players, as we go through, and this is very evident whenever I get to the next video about the draft picks between these 2 GMs, John Dorsey did not select players that stuck with the Browns for very long. He hit on a few key guys, which is super important. That's the core of our team. But the rest of the draft picks, the pieces that we hoped were depth pieces or future development, that guys could turn into starters, it just did not happen under John Dorsey. And you'll see that when we get to that video, like I said. But AB, I believe, has just done an absolutely phenomenal job putting together this roster. Everything he's done, the trades, while we went through some of these trades, like starting back in 2020, he makes savvy trades. That's what he does. Like he knows how to turn 1 pick into 2 or 3 and then still get decent players with those picks. Now, it didn't start out so great. Like I said, with Jordan Elliott and Anthony Schwartz, kind of as those first 2. But since then, the players that AB has flipped these picks for, that he's traded for just straight up with other teams, the Amari Cooper fleecing with Dallas, still, to this day, probably my favorite trade in Browns history. A 5th round pick for one of the best receivers in football, absolutely unreal. So again, this is an Andrew Berry hype video. It really is. I'm telling you my opinion on Andrew Berry. I think he is the best GM the Browns have had, and I hope that he sticks with the Browns for a long time. I hope he continues to be the one building this roster, because what he's doing, what he's building, and how he's doing it, I absolutely love. This is just one part of it. This is the trades, the free agent signings, the players that Andrew Berry has brought in to build this team to fill important, crucial starting positions. The next video, we will see the draft picks. I will go through, I will show you my spreadsheet, my evaluations, the way that I calculated the overall scores for every draft pick Andrew Berry has made, and I even did John Dorsey's drafts too, and we will compare them. We'll look at them, and it's fun to do a deep dive into these player personnel moves, because like I said at the top of the video, a lot of debate right now. Andrew Berry, is he a great GM? Is he a bad GM? Is he making good moves, stupid moves, good picks, bad picks? Browns fans are all over the board, as we always are, and as we should be. There's no reason why we have to be lockstep with each other on everything. Having differing opinions and debates on everything revolving around our favorite team is critical, because it gets us all thinking outside of our own box. But at the end of the day, all we want to do is see the Cleveland Browns win. We want to win a damn Super Bowl. And I believe Andrew Berry is on the path of building a roster. And I think he's already built a roster capable of doing that. So again, thank you guys. Really appreciate you checking out the video. Please drop it a like and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. That really helps us out. YouTube Dog Pack, just 99 cents. Join the channel, get your first level 1 badge. Anyone who joined last month with a level 1, you guys just got your level 2 badges, or you're about to. Congratulations. Get in. 99 cents, like I said, it's all it takes to support the channel. We really appreciate it. Omaha Steaks Mother's Day, 1 week from now. Get stuff ordered now. It will come this week if you order, but you got to order it soon, okay? Impress the people at your get-together with Omaha Steaks. I promise you guys, you will not be disappointed with the quality of that food. It is amazing. And for the price, honestly, it's a great deal. So, thank you, everybody. Have a great week. And until we talk to you again, let's go Browns.
Thanks for listening to another episode of the Dawgs Podcast. Make sure you subscribe on YouTube and follow us on Twitter at TheDawgs Podcast. Get your thoughts on the show at TheDawgsPodcast.com.